The phone buzzed on the marble countertop, a stark white intrusion into the quiet of my Parisian apartment. The glow of the screen illuminated the half-packed suitcase at my feet, a mess of silk and linen for a client's wedding in Santorini I was due to fly to tomorrow. I wasn't supposed to see the message. It was a group text from my sister's wedding planner, a woman named Celeste whose signature was usually attached to invoices with more zeros than my monthly rent. Final guest list confirmation. The subject line read, a flutter of genuine excitement, the kind I reserved only for family, made me tap the notification. Isabel's big day was finally here. My eyes skimmed the alphabetized names, a professional habit from years of managing these. Very list for strangers. Anderson, Black, Harrington. I scrolled through the names once, then again, slower this time, my thumb pausing on the screen. A cold knot began to tighten in my stomach. Peterson, Reynolds, Vance. My name wasn't there. Nia Vance. It was a simple, unadorned name, but it was mine. And it was absent. I stared at the screen, the bright light burning into my retinas, thinking maybe I'd missed it in a moment of careless scrolling. Maybe it was under V for Vance, or perhaps they'd filed it incorrectly under Ember. But no, the space where my name should have been was just that, an empty, silent space in a list of 200 people. The hum of the refrigerator suddenly seemed deafening. This had to be an error. A catastrophic, last-minute clerical error. My fingers, usually so steady when negotiating with temperamental Venetian florists, trembled as I typed into the group. Thread. Hey, I think there's been a mistake. I don't see my name. The 3 dots appeared immediately, a pulsing ellipsis that felt like a countdown. Seconds later, a private message from Isabel lit up my screen, bypassing the group. Entirely, her reply was not an apology, not an explanation of a glitch. It was a dismissal. It's not a mistake, Mia. We had to make some difficult cuts to the list. I hope you understand. Understand? The word echoed in the hollow of my chest. I understood the mathematics of venue capacity. I understood the politics of plus ones and distant relatives. But this was the final stark clarification of a truth I had spent a lifetime quietly suspecting. That was the moment the last fragile thread of denial snapped. I wasn't family, not really. Not in the way that guaranteed a seat at the table without conditions. I was a convenience. A free, on-call wedding consultant. A shadow that smoothed the path for the golden child to shine. And as I looked from my sister's cold text to the open suitcase filled with the tools of my trade built on crafting belonging and celebration for others, something inside me solidified, cold and unyielding. That was about to change. Mia, it's not personal. Isabel's voice was a study in strained patience, as if she were explaining basic arithmetic to a child. We're over budget and the guest list got too long. You know how these things are. I'm your sister. Isabel. The words felt fragile and ancient on my tongue. A plea from a childhood script that had never worked. Exactly, she countered, her tone softening into a weapon. You'll understand. You do this for a living. You're practical. Besides, she added, the final blow delivered with a casual, conversational air, Mom said you wouldn't mind. You're not really into big, fussy family stuff anyway, are you? I opened my mouth, a protest, a scream, a lifetime of swallowed words. Poised on my lips, but the distinct, hollow tone of an ended call was the only reply. She had already hung up. The silence in my apartment was no longer quiet. It was complicit. That night, my mother called. Not to defend me, not to comfort her uninvited daughter, but to seamlessly transition me into a new, more fitting role. Honey, she began, her voice dripping with pragmatic sympathy. Since you're not going to the wedding, could you still help Isabel with the rehearsal dinner? You're just so good at these things, and you know the caterer. I laughed at a sharp, brittle sound that scraped my throat, the kind of laugh that hurts because it's ripped from a place of profound hurt. That's when the final ugly truth crystallized. I wasn't part of the celebration. I was the help. The unpaid, unappreciated, and ultimately disposable help. So, with the taste of that painful laughter still in the air, I decided to plan my own event. One where I would be the center, the architect, the guest of honor. One no one in my family would ever forget. The plan was born not in anger, but in a serene, cold clarity. 3 days later, I booked a one-way flight to Amalfi, Italy. Not for a client, not for work, but for me. A small inheritance from my grandmother, a nest egg I kept sacred while Isabel had blown hers on a crucial upgrade for her diamond, now found its true purpose. Through a contact who owed me a favor, I secured a secluded villa on the coast Villa Mirabella, a name that tasted of hope, perched on a cliff where the only sounds were the waves and the wind, and I started planning, not a vacation. A wedding. My own. But here is the twist. The secret I had clutched to my chest like a lucky charm. 6 months earlier, while sourcing lavender for a client's ceremony in Florence, I'd met Lorenzo. He was a travel photographer, all quiet intensity and effortless kindness. His eyes holding the soft focus of captured sunsets. We'd kept a tender, long-distance flame alive. He'd offered to fly to me countless times, but my frantic schedule, my endless dedication to other people's happily ever afters, had always gotten in the way. In the devastating quiet after Isabel's text, I finally messaged him, my pride in tatters. "How do you feel about Italy next month?" He replied, almost instantly, his answer a bomb. "For you, always." I confessed everything, the text, the disinvitation, the hollow feeling, and then I told him what I truly wanted. Not a revenge, not a spectacle, but something symbolic. A celebration, not of being left out, but of finally, irrevocably choosing myself, and I asked him if he would stand with me as I did. The scent of lemon blossoms and sea salt greeted me before any staff could, a perfume I had chosen for 100 clients, but was now, finally, for myself. The manager, Sophia, whom I'd worked with for years, embraced me, her eyes glistening. "For you, Mia, everything is perfect," she whispered. They all knew. I had choreographed a dozen fantasies on these sun-drenched terraces, but this time the vision was mine alone. The white silk runners shimmered under the setting sun, the lavender sprigs from the hillside perfumed the air, and a lone cello's melody wove through the cypress trees. Each note a stitch in the tapestry of my new beginning. Lorenzo found me. Bare, the golden light haloing his silhouette. A small velvet box was tucked in his hand. "You didn't tell me this was going to be your wedding," he teased, his voice thick with emotion down my heart. So often a clenched fist, softened and opened. "Our wedding," I said, the words feeling both daring and destined. "If you want it to be." The stunned silence that followed was brief, then shattered by a laugh that was half sob, his eyes shining. "Mia," he breathed, pulling me into an embrace that felt like coming home. "I'd marry you in a train station. I'd marry you anywhere." The next morning, we spoke our vows under the ancient, twisting branches of an olive tree. There were no guests to appease, no photographer directing our intimacy, no weight of a designer gown, only the dappled sunlight, the taste of salt on the breeze, and the profound truth of a promise spoken from the heart. Afterward, we captured the moment with Lorenzo's old film camera, the clicks quiet and personal, the images meant only for us. And then, in a final, quiet act of reclamation, I posted a single, perfect photo to the world I had left behind, our hands intertwined. With the Amalfi coastline, a breathtaking blur of blue and green below. The caption was a quiet dagger, aimed not to wound, but to sever. Turns out, the best weddings are the ones where love is actually invited. The fallout was swift. In exactly 1 hour, my phone lit up with Isabel's name. "What the hell? Mia? Did you get married? In Italy?" Her voice was a crack of thunder in my serene world. "Yes," I replied, the calm in my voice unshakable. "It was perfect. You couldn't even wait until after my wedding?" "You had to make it about you." "Oh, don't worry, Izzy," I said, my voice soft yet firm. "Yours will still be big. Mine was just real." Then I hung up, the silence. That followed more powerful than any retort. 2 days later, a different buzzing began, a chorus of messages from extended family. The truth was out. Isabel's lie that I was too busy with work had collapsed, and the narrative had irrevocably flipped, tarnishing the shiny veneer of her perfect fairy tale. A year has passed. Lorenzo and I have built a life in a sun-baked Italian village, and my agency now crafts the kind of intimate, soulful ceremonies I now believe in. The email from Isabel last month was almost poetic in its lack of self-awareness. She and her husband were planning a vow renewal in Tuscany and wanted me to help with arrangements. My reply was brief and final. Sorry, Isabel. My schedule's full, but I wish you all the happiness in the world. I smiled as I closed the laptop, the screen going dark. For the first time, I was no longer the forgotten sister. I was the architect of my own joy, the one who had finally stopped waiting for a seat at someone else's table and had built her own, stronger and more beautiful from the ground up.